we'll definitely talk about this, that there's a possibility that there won't be a backlog in this calendar year or in this fiscal year. But I think that any investor who's filing today has to make peace with they're doing this to escape a much, much longer backlog, typically, or this is the only option that they have to begin with. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a 6 to 7 year wait in a rural project. It might only be half that, especially if you're Indian. But I think that it's good to know that this is not going to happen overnight. So far, it kind of has been happening overnight, and that's great. And that's a great outcome for all of our investors. But I do think that moving forward, as more and more people kind of try to file before grandfathering ends, it is a good idea to temper expectations just slightly. I think that I'll back that up and say that this is not meant to turn anyone away from filing in a high unemployment area project. This is simply to kind of look at the data and understand what you're prioritizing and what steps you would be taking to meet those priorities, right? We've said it countless times on our webinars. There is a customer or a client or an investor who is going to prefer high unemployment area projects. We have multiple, we have many that choose our high unemployment area projects despite us having rural projects available at all times. So there's a right project for everyone's different priorities, but if the only reason you're doing this is to get your green card as quickly as possible, I think the numbers speak for themselves. If you're looking for more of a balance, a lot of HUA projects, including our own, definitely offer some of that. I think a lot of investors that we speak with, the first question is always, what do we do first? How do we get started? And the answer is you need to hire an immigration attorney. It can be one that we recommend. It can be one that you find on your own. It can be one that you got as a referral through some other source. Totally okay. But that's the first step. And the bottleneck in this entire process typically does end up being the source of funds. I think that we get a lot of investors who are so sure that their source of funds is only going to take 3 days, and they spend 2 months kind of looking at projects and choosing the project and visiting and doing all the other stuff, and they finally pull the trigger and they say, okay, I'm ready to move forward with this project. Talk to an attorney, and the attorney says, great, this is going to take 4 to 6 weeks. So hire the attorney first, and then while they're working on your source of funds, at that same time simultaneously look at projects and do the work that's necessary there. I think the other thing that's super important besides the attorney is which regional center you work with. I think so many people focus on individual projects that they sometimes almost forget that there is an overarching organization that is tasked with looking after their betterment in these projects themselves. And the regional center that you work with, one that's going to look out for your rights, is super, super important. And I think if you look at our track record specifically, you'll see multiple areas where, we went through COVID. We had other projects where we felt the developer was doing things incorrectly, and we stepped in and took steps to protect our investors. You really want to, you want to focus on the quality of the project. That's super important. You want to understand the structure. You want to understand what can go well, what can go wrong. But you also want to work with a regional center that will look out for your best interests and make sure that, that everything is happening both on the immigration side and the financial side as it's supposed to.
One thing, once we saw the data that came out, that we wanted to look at overall market versus what we were seeing, is just get analysis of how was USCIS processing increased based on their posted data through July, and then also going through the full rest of the year in 2025. So what can we expect going forward in terms of total adjudications? So on the left-hand side, when you look full year to full year, there was a huge jump of 167% for us in terms of the amount of approvals of the I-526Es. When you're looking at it side by side, from 196 up to 524 in 2025. But then even more importantly, what I think you see when you look at it kind of half by half, because there is always variance in between quarters, is that USCIS seems to have hit kind of their steady state processing through the full year 25. So what you saw in the first half of 25 continued with a slight bump. But what I'd say is that they're operating pretty much at max efficiency right now, that at least we'd expect. And when you look at it quarterly, they made a big push before the end of the year Q3. It was fiscal Q4, where things dropped back down in actual Q4. But when we look at our data, that's pretty consistent with what's happened before. So what we would expect going forward is that unless there's another massive jump in 2026, I think we're probably hitting at about steady state here where you could expect them to continue that processing that we've been seeing through 2025 because we saw it in the back half of the year to continue on. And this is one of the slides that I'd say we're most proud of is that post RIA deals alone, we're at over 15,000 jobs created across just this subset of projects. And these are the projects where we've created nearly enough where all the jobs faster in the deal. So when you look at this, we just think it's very helpful to see that these are projects that we chose that didn't face construction delays, that didn't have permitting issues, and weren't able to commence. And we're very specific in how we choose our projects, where first and foremost, we want to make sure every investor gets their green card with no problems. And how do you do that is making sure the project's pre-approved so that the structure works with the 956F, but then also that there's already significant job creation underway. And as you can see here, 15,000 plus jobs created post RIA for investors in these deals. So plenty of jobs. And this is just something really unique in how we decide to structure deals and work on them. Rather than doing many pre-construction deals, we're really focused on deals that are already proven and in the market.